What is going on, guys? I'm Consumer Tech Review, and today I'm going to be doing a review of the Keychron K3. I'm going to go over the pros and the cons and my own real life experience that I've had with this keyboard. All right, but let's jump right into the very first pro of this. This is a 75% form factor, and if you guys are laptop users, which I believe a lot of you will be that are going to be getting this keyboard, a 75% form factor is probably going to be the form factor on your laptop. So there's not going to be a whole lot of learning curve to using a new form factor. As well as this, it looks pretty, and a big one is it saves a lot of space while not compromising your keys. So you're still going to get all of your function keys, you're still going to get your arrow keys, but it's going to be in a fairly small form factor while still having all those keys. So 75% is pretty perfect. And this is like a low profile version of the Keychron K2. All right, now obviously this is a low profile keyboard, and there are a lot of pros to having a low profile keyboard, but let's talk about the switches. You can either get this with Gateron low profile switches, or you can get this with the Keychron optical low profile switches, which obviously is the way to go. They are also hot swappable with other Keychron optical low profile switches. Now that's really cool, but let's go over the switches. I tested out 4 different switches. I tested out the brown switches, the white switches, the red switches, and the orange switches. And I have some ideas that are pretty different than I think a lot of other mechanical keyboards that you've heard from this channel about switches. Okay, that sounds really like crazy and in-depth, but let me go over it. First of all, the brown switches are a tactile switch, and they actually feel really good, like one of the best feeling switches out of all of them. The white switch is a linear switch, and it's very light. The red switch is, again, a linear switch, but it's a little bit heavier than the white switch. The white switch would be kind of like a gaming style switch, or if you guys just don't like a tactile bump and like something really light. And then the orange switch would be kind of like a blue. It's tactile and it's very clicky and very crisp. Now, let's go over all these switches. First of all, the browns and the oranges typically on a keyboard, like a blue switch or a brown switch, would be louder than something like a linear switch. Now on this keyboard, all of the switches are not loud. Like even the clicky one is not really that loud. So if you're using this in a work environment, it's just not gonna be that loud. I compared this to a normal like brown switch, and the difference is insane. Like the brown switch is super loud compared to this keyboard. It's just quiet. So first of all, I don't typically like clicky switches, but the orange switches were surprisingly nice, and I really enjoyed them. And I think honestly, for me, for this keyboard, I would probably recommend either the brown switch or the orange switch. Now the brown switch, you're gonna be able to use probably more, just because the clicks will be a slight bit louder than the browns, and it might annoy you at some point, but if you really do like that crisp contact, I mean, it's very crisp. The orange switches are really, really crisp, which for typing would be really, really good. But again, the browns are probably the way to go overall. But yeah, overall, all the switches are great, and none of them are really that loud. Here is a sound test with the browns on it, and the H, J, and K keys have the other white, red, and orange switches on them. Take a listen. And that is how it sounds. All right, now let's talk the build quality. First, on the top is a metal plate that will go all the way down to the edges, so it kind of wraps around the edge. It's very high quality. It doesn't flex that much. And again, remember, this is a low profile, thin, and light keyboard, so you can travel with it, all the stuff like that. Now, on the bottom is a plastic, but it's a high quality feeling plastic. And let's talk the risers. This actually has 3 levels of like adjustability. So first there's risers completely down, then there's 2 stage risers, so you can either have it half up in the middle or fully up and pretty angular. Now, because of those keycaps, I like to have it up at least to the 2nd level. I think I always keep it in that medium level. It just feels the nicest for me. But yeah, they made it so it's heavy, but it's not too heavy. It's very sturdy, but it's not like overbuilt so that it's heavy to carry. So yeah, I think for putting this in your book bag every day, if you're going to work or going to school, this would be absolutely perfect for that. But it's light enough to carry, but it's also not too flimsy that you're gonna break it. All right, now let's talk the keycaps. This is not like an OEM style. This is a low profile. They all have the exact same profile to them. So there is no like dip or curve like normal OEM non-low profile keycaps. Now for me, this actually worked really, really well. The top of them are all smooth. They're completely smooth, which feels really good. And the letters are really, really nice. They are not huge and massive and gamery. They are clean and minimal, and they're very small. They're not like too small to read, but they're like small enough where it's like, okay, that looks good, it looks clean, and the backlighting shines through really nicely behind them. Now, continuing on with that, if you're a Mac user, you're gonna really like this, because what you find throughout this keyboard is that it's clean, it's minimal, it fits that vibe. All right, now let's talk compatibility. This works with Mac and iOS as well as Android and Windows. Now on the top of it, there are 2 toggle switches, the top back plate. So still without lifting the keyboard up, it's just on the top of it, which is nice. Now you can either switch this between Bluetooth, off, or cable use, which is really cool, because if you wanted to charge it while using it off of Bluetooth, you can definitely do that with a USB-C cable. And then as well as that, you can also change between Android/Windows and iOS/Mac. So that's really awesome. Now, as well as that, they do include keycaps for if you're gonna use this for a Mac. So they have the command and all those. But if you wanted to switch it over to like the Windows key instead of the command, you can absolutely do that because they include it in the box, which is really important because it's much harder to get keycaps for this that will fit on it, because it's a low profile keyboard. All right, now let's talk the battery life. This has a fairly small battery at 1,550 milliamp hours, which is not too big comparatively to other Keychron keyboards and just to other wireless keyboards out there. So this is probably it's all gonna depend on your use, but it's probably gonna be about weekly charging, which is still not that bad. But continuing on with that, let's talk the Bluetooth connectivity. First of all, let's just get this out of the way very quickly. I didn't have any issues with connecting. You can connect 3 devices at once and switch between them very quickly, very easily. All you do is hold FN and then do number 1, 2, or 3 to pair them. You hold it for 4 seconds and you instantly pair it. It worked both fantastically with Windows as well as Mac, and it all connected really quickly. I never had cutouts or connection issues, so that's not really an issue. All right, now let's talk the RGB. I have cons and I have pros with this, and I want to talk about it because it's actually very different than most keyboards. Now, the RGB on this is not insane, right? It's not blowing you away. It's not incredibly bright, but what you do is you put this in a dark room. Now, I will say, when this is on Bluetooth, you basically cannot see the RGB in the daytime. If you're sitting in a bright room, in a cafe, you're not gonna be able to see the RGB, basically. But if you're in a dark room, a completely dark room or a pretty dark room, and you have this in front of your laptop or something like that, it glows so cleanly because it's not shining out at like super bright spots. It's basically showing those letters that's really clean, and it's like so easy to see. Now, obviously this is mimicking something like a laptop because it basically shines a little bit brighter than the backlight on like a MacBook Pro. So to me, that actually works really well. Plus you have all those different RGB modes, which I usually just try to keep it on like a static white or a static blue, or sometimes a static red. And I think that looks really nice and really clean to match the whole vibe of this keyboard. But the con that I have with this is I didn't have a problem with the brightness of it because I really liked how clean it was in the dark. And I thought that's how most people were gonna probably be using this. They're gonna use it as a utilitarian thing. When it's in the dark, you can absolutely see the keys. And when it's out of the dark, it just looks like a clean keyboard. But when you plug this thing in with a cable, the RGB gets brighter. And I wish that they would have just allowed you to make it the brightest setting on battery. That is kind of like, why did you not let me have that option? But overall, it's not really a problem for me. I still really love how clean the RGB is and how nicely it shines through those keycaps in a very clean way. So overall, not a big con. It just was like, why didn't you give me that? All right, so overall, is it worth it to get the Keychron K3? Well, if you are a typical person that loves mechanical keyboards, no, absolutely not. This is not really for you. This is not a keyboard that you're gonna go in and mod and put foam in and lube the switches. Like, it's not that kind of keyboard. It's very hard to even find keycaps for this. This is for someone who wants a minimalistic keyboard that already looks beautiful, that either travels a lot or wants a really minimalistic keyboard that functions really well through Bluetooth with both Mac and Windows, especially if you're a Mac user, this is huge, and that is portable and you can carry it with you and is sturdy, and overall is just a more luxurious experience than typing on something like an Apple Magic Keyboard or your laptop. So if you are that specific person, this is probably a perfect keyboard. This is a purpose-built keyboard for people like that. So yeah, if you fit everything I just said, you will probably love the Keychron K3. But this was Consumer Tech Review. If you guys enjoyed this video and it helps you out, help me out and throw a like below. And if you enjoy videos like this, keyboard reviews, a bunch of other videos that will be coming very, very soon that are gonna be much more high quality than you guys have ever seen before on this channel, then please consider subscribing below. But this was Consumer Tech Review, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Consumer Tech Review out.